Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. So before I get into this part 6 of the Morgan Hill story and lessons, what have you, I'd like to point out some wordplay that's key here. Population. Population. Okay, so they're shunning God the Father, they're shunning patriarchal lines, what have you. The mention, right? Mention. Men shun. So it's like mention, the men shun. Okay, people actually who are man enough to serve God, not the propaganda game. I'm the only one really serving God. My parents are blameless. Bread. Be red. Red, the color of evil. Think about the occult. Think about the devil's clothing, what have you. Control. Control. Social control. Like sow your seed. So shall it be. For example, so shall, social, control. Control. And of course, evil is lived spelled backwards. Devil is lived scrambled, what have you. So, the linguistic experts might tell you that it is magically a coincidence. So I made this kind of, this quote. I want you to write this down. Quote unquote, the linguistic experts told you that it is a coincidence, and you believed them. Reminds you of Chinese Connection, right? You know, where Bruce Lee's mad about his master being killed, and he's like, and you believed him. How could a healthy man die? How could that be? So the linguistic experts told you that it is a coincidence magically, and you believed them. Okay, and that helps you understand why I'm right. You'll figure it out later if you haven't figured it out already. Okay. So if you keep thinking about it. So I'm very proud to have moved through the streets as an individual, often. Even though I had a great potential for rolling deep, I'm proud that I stood on my own 10 toes, you feel me? People noticed that I was a martial arts grand champion, and around 16, I had an incident with a northerner at his house with people in back of him at his home. He was 25 or so, and I was 16 or so. This was someone the person named, a derogatory term for white people, had introduced me to. To make a long story short, my father had beat me to a rendezvous point, and he said to him that he will call the cops on him or something because he knew that he was there to do something that had to do with weed. He was going to meet me to deliver weed. He knew because he overheard on the phone or something. He said he ended up getting locked up to avoid giving me money or weed or something, giving my money back or weed, what have you. So when my mom, that's what he ended up saying. For example, to make a long story short, my mom dropped me off by his house and she kept parked around the corner. Okay, because I was so eager to try to get my weed that I was like, okay, let me just risk this thing. Maybe he'll just give me the weed right fast. Maybe she'll wait, we'll smoke a bowl. She'll smell it on me and I'll try to, because I was very much into weed, right? Okay, so I knocked on the door. He initially didn't answer. Then I was walking away. He came on his porch, and that's when I saw people behind him, what have you. And he said he should knock the person, me out or whatever, okay, because of what he claimed happened. And that was like his little story to get out of giving me my money back or, giving me weed or whatever. Little did he know he was saying it to the top martial artist ever possible and the smartest person that ever lived. And so my tolerance for Hispanic thugs, remember, I'm not racist, right? My tolerance for Hispanic thugs was almost gone, though I did not consider what he did a major offense. I was tired of people taking my kindness for weakness, and I knew how people gossip. Also note that I am not racist, but I judge people as individuals and as groups. Okay. So Maria had broken my heart in high school, right? When I was around that time, I was 16, and her boyfriend that she would soon break up with when I was 16, right? When I was there the first year, she had a boyfriend. I was there the second year when she broke my heart. She didn't have a boyfriend, okay? But her ex-boyfriend, her boyfriend when I was a sophomore, okay, he was a Hispanic, almost a skater type. And that's not a coincidence. This is all something the government put together, believe it or not. And he literally looked like the character Weasel from A Devil and Daniel Mouse, the cartoon. It's still on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. I'll put a link for it in the description if I remember. If I don't remember, put it in the comments, and I'll try to find it for you. If you're having trouble finding it, they should at least have a trailer for it, right? The Devil and Daniel Mouse. Okay, so before that had happened, you got to understand the context, right? There's another example of wordplay. The con, right? Con text, okay. And so we talk about scripture, right? What is it called? Scripture, a script, right? They're playing the game. It's a play. It's an act. There's even a book in the Bible called Acts, okay, and acting, right? But obviously the Bible is superimposed on reality. Obviously God is real, what have you. Okay, so where was I? Okay. So when I was in boarding school in Southern California, in a place called Claremont, some black gang members had confronted me. One was like black and Samoan or something. And a friend when I was 14 or 15 during my freshman year in high school. There was maybe 40 or so of them, and 4 older guys or so broke off from the group. I only remember how 3 of them look. So maybe it was 3 that broke off from, but it was me and my friend. He was also a freshman. He was a shorter white guy. We wouldn't have had a chance going squabbling with him, right? And I was only 14 before I went into martial arts, and I was working out a little bit, but I wasn't that strong or anything. Okay. So they had confronted me. Okay, and they said basically, "Where are you from?" Okay, and we kind of went quiet for a second. But I responded. My friend, his name was Terry. He was quiet. He was scared to death, right? And I was like, "Okay, we're not from around here. I'm from San Jose. He's from San Francisco." And they went quiet for a second. Okay, it was an awkward little moment of silence. And then they're like, "Look, we're not stupid. Okay, I asked you where the fuck you from, or something to that effect. Or I asked you where you're from, right?" And one was wearing a blue, like 2 of them were wearing blue Cowboys gear. One was wearing a red plaid with black gloves. And the guy who was the biggest one of them was like black and Samoan. He had like his hair straightened out, like Snoop Dogg's hair straightened out sometimes, but he was missing hair, like someone had pulled out his hair. He'd been to the pen or something. He was bringing up, he got packed out in various situations. He got beat up. He's like, look, he was saying that he got beat up and no one took it easy on him, and so he's not going to cut any passes, right? And so I say it again. I'm like, I told you where we're from. I'm from San Jose. He's from San Francisco. We're out here in boarding school. We're not from around here. And there's quiet again. Now, at that point, either they could have just taken off on us, or someone's going to understand. And believe it or not, it was a guy with the red and black plaid that understood. He's kind of looking, and his face like changes, like he sees the good in me. He sees, it's like they didn't get it at first, and then he sees that I have this very holy face. His face starts to transfigure, so to speak, right? For lack of a better word, because it was such a dramatic change. He has like an epiphany. And he's like, oh, okay, Oh, no, I also asked him, you know where that is? He's like, look, we're not stupid, right? Or something like that. And then the guy was like, oh, okay, so you're from San Jose, right? And he's from San Francisco. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, you know where San Francisco? And they start being more kind of friendly, but it's still tense. So we start walking backwards. We start backpedaling. And they're like, oh yeah, one of the first things they said too was, I forgot that part, was says, you got $1, right? So they're asking for money, and we're like, oh, they're going to jump us and rob us, right? And so we're kind of walking backwards toward the liquor store, because it was poorly lit area between the liquor store and the Burger King over there in Claremont. And so we're kind of backpedaling, and they stop us again, and they start trying to talk to us by the liquor store. Then some guy who looks like one of my martial art teachers I have private classes with in Morgan Hill that I'm not supposed to talk about. We made a verbal agreement to not discuss it too much, the nature of, but it was just martial arts, right? It was no secret society stuff, right? So he looks like that guy, but it's not that guy. Who also looks like the doctor in the car accident, right? And I guess he triggered his car alarm or something. The car alarm goes off. They split. There's like an alleyway. They run hella fast. Even the big guy. They run hella fast, and we start walking away, and they run so fast that they went around the alleyway and around the back of the store. It's like a pretty long alleyway. And they came back in like no time flat. And they're like, it's fucked up that you guys tried to, leave like that. okay, as if we're like friends and that we took off on them when they needed us or something, right? Yeah, so they were working their mouth. It's like they didn't actually have a plan. They just approached us, but it's like they did have a plan. It was very strange. And to make a long story short, they end up just walking away, like whatever, at the end of it. It was very strange, right? The whole situation. And even though Claremont is not that bad of a city, they have, little white crews there. They have, gang members come through there at times. And that's one of the places you'll find them, by the liquor store and the Burger King. I've seen biker gang members there with shirts that said "From Gangs to Grace." And also the park over there by the school, one of the schools there that wasn't that far away from that point that we used to go hang out and smoke weed at, and so on and so forth. Okay. So I was being fed, and of course these older guys, one time I gave them $20. I'm like, because they were smoking weed. You guys got any weed? Like, yeah. And I'm like, how much you want? I got 20. So boom, I give it to them. And like, oh, they get in the car, like, we got to go get it, and they just drive away. And I actually seen that one of those dudes later, which shows the gangstalking. I mean, I didn't see gang members there all the time, but I saw that particular guy from the park. There was like 2 or 3 of them. And one of them also looked like someone else I'd seen before. And he was at the mall, and I'm with my mom, and he kind of, he's looking me up and down, and he's like, she's shorter than I am, but he's older than I am, and he's stronger than I am. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think they arranged for all those events. And needless to say, I didn't try to fight with them when I'm walking with my mom. That's just weird. Okay. So I was being fed this hatred. I was fed a lot of hatred growing up, and the world was kept from knowing who I am, and I was kept from knowing who I am. So I was often at various schools or by myself. I went to 5 different high schools, depending on how you count them. First, I went to the boarding school in Southern California. Then I came back and I went to Live Oak. Then I went to Cornerstone Christian School in Gilroy. Then I went to a reform school and a behavior modification program, okay, and an adult school. I had come back from Campo Reform School after the Norteno incident later on. So that incident happened before going to reform school. And it kind of couples with all the kind of confrontations I have when I go to reform school to kind of create me a lot of anger. So I was ripped and angry coming back from reform school because I was lifting weights ever since I was my freshman year, right? And I was starting to get bigger and bigger, right? And so between 14 and 16, I was lifting weights. By the time, I came back from reform school, they had a pretty vigorous program there, including a workout program, that I was kind of very toughened and hardened, because I also had been to a behavior modification program, a wilderness program where we're cutting down trees and dragging them a long distance, and we're up in the morning, and it's like a military program, right? Designed to kind of mess with your head and break you. So the time for counterattacks, the government had arranged for the various situations that I was in, as I'm told by them. Some of their workers have admitted this in a way that is extremely believable. There's no other way to look at it. And it was basically always assisted by technologies of behavioral control. Okay, a huge part of this story, and you're a fool if you don't believe me, is that there's technologies of behavioral control. In fact, the word tech, T-E-C-H, is C-H-E-T, scrambled, which is very similar to the cheat. It has the same sound, phonetics, sounds, cheat, scrambled. Tech is a way to cheat, right? And again, that goes back to he, see, he at, and he cat, and see heat versus justice, just ice. And of course, the white man does not bring justice, so to speak. No offense to anyone, I'm not racist, but he's a neo-colonialist. He lives a fairy fantasy. They play a fairy fantasy game. Obviously, some don't like it as much as others, but you get what I'm saying. Okay. So the time for counterattacks was near, as I could not tolerate people preventing me from rising above the crowd. Okay, just like it says in the Hagakure, the great martial artist is going to rise above the crowd. He's not going to say, hey, this is no big deal, right? Now, if you're a Buddhist monk, you might have a different philosophy, but you know that the most competitive guys are going to have a competitive personality, okay? In terms of there's a lot of Buddhist monks can beat people who are competitive, but when you get to the highest point of martial arts, it's very competitive guys who are very focused as a result of being determined to win. I do not for a moment believe that with a pacifist mentality or a Buddhist monk mentality that you can magically outmaneuver the most focused. It's like saying, if a bobcat took on a more peaceful mentality and tried to be calculative, that it would take on a leopard. It's that intensity of the leopard that makes him do the amazing things. And it goes beyond your ability. Because I've taken Kung Fu, right? I've taken a karate class. I've taken taekwondo, what have you. I'm familiar with how they think, how they move, how their techniques, their philosophy in regards to moving ki or chi energy. I'm very familiar with that. That is not the pinnacle of martial arts. It's interesting, okay, their ideas. They like their lifestyle. It's not for everyone. It's not the pinnacle. The pinnacle is focused moral intensity and a belief in God. That's the only way. That's the only thing that allows for one to achieve the top martial artist position. And no one will ever be a valid top martial artist after I'm gone in reality, mind you, not in the propaganda psychological construct, but in reality. So again, I could not tolerate people from preventing me from rising above the crowd. And if you're wondering about the Hagakuri, which also has wordplay there, hag, right, has to do with witchcraft, but some of the things they're saying are real. They're not just for people who do witchcraft. And rising above the crowd is one of them, right? Risking, rise king, right? What have you. So, and even talking, right? Tall king, right? And kung fu is a play on words for king foe. So their philosophy is actually adverse to mine. Because just because someone says, hey, we're going to withdraw and kind of just go in a monastery doesn't mean they're not making a martial art argument. If you're making a martial art argument and you're trying to pretend that you're the best at martial arts, okay, and someone says, hey, I'm the top martial artist ever, martial is marital scramble, Christ is the bridegroom, then you're at odds with that person. No offense to Buddhists or anyone else, but I'm sure you can all see that I'm right about that. Because you start thinking about Bruce Lee and the movie that, who took Kung Fu initially before he made Jeet Kune Do, and the movie where there's one Jack Man or whatever, and it's one Jack Man, right? Jacob, Jack, Obi. Obi meaning King Heart Hut, Essence Center, Temple Core. Cure Obi meaning black belt. Obi is a belt and a sash. So it also applies for Kung Fu people wearing sashes and priests who wear sashes. Okay, like there's one Orthodox priest who's getting more famous these days, right? So one Jack Man, one, the Alpha, the A, the one. Jack Man, the man Ebo, the man Obi. And it's not a coincidence, right? Kung Fu, King Fo. They're just taking that particular angle, And again, no offense to anybody. So, again, this was a martial arts issue and not just a gangster issue, but it was mixed with gang philosophy. At the time, I saw myself as a gangster that did martial arts. I saw myself as the most serious of Crips by the time I was 17. And if something became a shoot-'em-up issue, that I was going to find a way to access my parents' guns or buy them off the street. Like, I was not going to back down from anything. Because you got to realize the difference between, teenage gang members and a Norteno who's like, maybe 5'7", maybe 165 pounds, 170, okay, who works out all the time, and gang members who've been to the pin in Los Angeles, in Norteno and Morgan Hill, and gang members who've been to the pin in Los Angeles. So I've been confronted at a younger age when I was weaker by some of the toughest gang members on the planet, the toughest types of gang members on the planet. Okay, when I was nowhere near prepared to go head up at that time with those black gang members. Okay, one of them was like black and Samoan or something. Okay, where in Morgan Hill, these guys were like my food. I couldn't let them show me up. Though I'm a brain surgeon's son, and I'd gone to a very competitive boarding school, that rejects 2 people for every person it accepts, because I scored the top 1 percentile on the SSAT to get into that school. And I got A's and B's 1 year, like in 7th grade or something. And I applied to it like at the beginning of the 8th grade year before I started getting bad grades in 8th grade or something like that. So I got in there, right? And, they also had, basically, okay. So I didn't want to go to prison. I didn't want to get in trouble with my parents. I was in a predicament, right? And I was not ghetto, was not trying to be ghetto. Okay. I was not aware of the fact that I am the idea. I was not aware of the fact that I am the idea that Horus and Christ are superimposed on. Note the wordplay in the wordplay imposter. In the wordplay imposter, and again, I'm not in the poster. The first part of the wordplay is I'm, and the second part is poster. So who's the poster? It's the Nordic, slightly Jewish-looking, white, Germanic, English, Anglo-Germanic-looking false image of Christ. It's the poster and the imposter. And these things had caused me to try to figure it out. A man who's rejected by others cannot reject himself, as a Biafran and Igbo proverb goes. I had to decide whether to confront with allies, to shoot people, to stab people, okay, to, or whatever, hit him with a bat, a crowbar, whatever. So being the smartest, by the way, Okay, by the way, I put this in parentheses. By the way, I had checked the military and the government workers again and again over this while they are tear tuck, resorting to sabotage and hiding behind rich pedos. Again, this is not to insult them. This is what I wrote down because they were harassing me during the making of this. Okay, so as I wrote this, they provoked me until I said meet me at the gate, and they failed to. So man, these people coordinate things. It's a walk in the park for them to say, hey, we're going to do this. He's going to say meet us at the gate. Have a team there. Okay, so they failed to go to the gate. Now again, do I think that people should argue with these people for no reason at all? No. But this is important, so I had gotten very angry. Okay, but I'm not a violent person. I'm not a dangerous person. Okay, I didn't go out and do some crazy stuff. I said meet me at the gate. It was something that I've established before. When it gets very heated, I say, well, okay, if you're going to keep insulting God and my family and saying things like they did horrible things to my grandma before she passed away, and they brought up that she might pass away soon before she did. Okay, I said, well, okay, meet me at the gate. So you have to understand provoking. Provoke, right? Provoke. Okay. And proclivity, right? And which means a tendency, an inclination. Okay, I point this out as this is part of the story. What happened while I write this story in Morgan Hill connects to what happened over 20 years ago in Morgan Hill. 27 to 24 years ago, 16 to 19. I'm the most deadly person ever possible. I had to resolve the issue in a way that is acceptable. What I mean by that is, because I'm the top martial artist ever, okay, say I got in a shootout with somebody. It's similar to sparring, right? There's a lot of elements there. So if I train to shoot, I almost certainly win unless the government used technology to cheat. So naturally, I'm the most deadly. A bunch of geeks with technology don't get to say that they're greater than I am at warfare because they cheat people with technology. No more than Tanya Harding gets to say that she won the Olympics that year when she sabotaged Nancy Kerrigan. Okay. Again, I am not a violent person. The government had turned, so going back to the Kyle story, the government had turned on Kyle, and he got his lip bust, as I said before. So now let's get into what a lot of people are very interested in. What do I do about all these things? And how do I feel about it? Do I think it was smart? Do I think it was wise? Again, I've said before, I made all my moves were wise, okay, with everything considered. Part of what it means to be wise is to have imperfect information and make a perfect decision. And to clash with these people with everything considered was important to do because of the lines they had crossed. It was a matter of principle. Do I recommend that other people do it? If you have the highest cause, you do what makes sense, what's right, what's just, is fair and right. I'm not racist. Okay. I had a crush on a Hispanic female who I thought was Hispanic. Her name was Maria Mello at the time. At Live Oak in that same city, small town, Morgan Hill. So I wasn't like I hate these people or something. I absolutely associated why she rejected me with the Hispanic community, but I did not think of it that way. If you look at the timeline of my life, I'm hanging out with Northerners while that stuff is going down. While I still have beef with those guys in Morgan Hill, I'm hanging out with other Northerners in other cities, right? So it wasn't like I was like, oh yeah, I had no problem with Hispanic people in general at that time. But I did blame them and their cultures for part of why she rejected me. For their part, it has to do with social barriers, cultural barriers, romantic barriers, what have you. Okay. Where was I here? Okay, so the government had turned on Kyle and he got his lip bust, as I said before, and he was pressed in jail. And I was not eager to create problems for me with my Crip identity and my ability to move through places by starting a war with Seven Trees and Thug Life, okay, who were more established in San Jose than I was, okay? But I'm more deadly than any individual member, and I have a greater propensity for violence as somebody who is more militant, more smart, what have you. I'm a brain surgeon's son, they're not. I'm the top martial arts ever, they're not, okay? I don't want to be them. They go to church and pray to me. It's pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so, and again, I'm not saying this to be cocky, but to set the record straight. Okay, so now the Northerners and the local crews were next on the agenda at that time. This would be the beginning of the end of me seeing myself on their side until, after later in my 20s. Okay, so there was some kind of rift in terms of what Nortenos do I see on my... So I still saw myself on their side to some degree, but to some degree I said, hey, these guys are likely to gang up against me. It's a complicated psychology there. But I definitely thought that what happens in Morgan Hill kind of stays in Morgan Hill. And that was somewhat of a mistake, but not a big mistake. Also, it's important to note, before I get into the Northerners, incidentally, I saw Kyle on 4 different times. One in the Village incident, okay, where he fails to jack me and I run away, and the government hits me with technology. I'm feeling very emotional at Burger King. Okay, so we had scuffled. When he tried to jack me, his brother was there. He's like, this is the guy you've been telling me about. There's some Village always burning AB members there. And I was waiting for a sack. Dude brought me back the sack. It was laced, whatever. We smoke a little bit. Boom. I'm a little out of it, right? Okay. For whatever reason, that also never made sense to me. I'm like, why didn't they just smoke with me more? They didn't know if he's going to be successful at jacking me. I guess they assumed that he was going to be successful. So he comes and, this is after he had slapped me and blew my eardrum and what have you, right, at the school, right? And his older brother's there. He's like, his older brother's shorter than him, and he's just a lot stronger than him, okay? And so Kyle, he's looking at me, he's approaching me. You think we're go fisticuffs? We don't. For whatever reason, he like grabs me or something, right? When he grabs me, I'm like, oh man, it's on right now. And he puts his arms over my shoulder, trying to reach into both my pockets at the same time. And even though he's 3 years older than me, I basically win that scuffle. I shake myself free, and I book. But before that had occurred, I forgot that. While I was waiting for the sack, some guy asked if they could use my phone, right? And me, I'm the type of guy that gets along with everyone. Part of me was like, I don't know about this. But part of me was like, what the hell? They know you have a phone. What can you do, right? So I gave him my phone. He ran off. Boom, he ran off. So first, that guy runs off. And then the guy named M, he's standing there, and he's like, okay, why didn't you chase him? I'm like, man, why the fuck if I chase him, I'm going to get tired and I'm going to scuffle this guy who's a Village AB member by myself, tired, in their neighborhood. That doesn't end well. And Kyle must have been waiting for me during that point. Okay, maybe their initial plan was that he's going to jump me trying to chase that guy. But I'm staying there waiting for the weed instead. It's like $100 worth of weed, and I gone through this guy who has a derogatory, his name is derogatory term for white people. Okay, it starts with a C. I gone through him many times before, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 times before. Okay, so I had trusted him. I didn't completely trust him, but I had trusted him in a sense, right, with $100. So then, so he brings him back a sack. It's purple kush, right? It's like a quarter or something, right? And, we start smoking. Boom, immediately, I'm like, man, this stuff is strong. There's something wrong with it, right? They had sprayed it with something or something. But they smoked it with me or something. It was fucking strange, right? Then he comes, and I'm like in a surreal state, and boom, okay, we start scuffling, right? In terms of he puts his arms over me, boom, and I shake free, boom, and I take off. And nobody is chasing me. So they brought up that I should chase that dude, but they didn't chase me. Okay? It's strange, right? But that's what happened. Okay. So there was that time. Then there was the time, he was driving down the road. I'm with my mom, and he's in his Thunderbird. I feel this hatred. My mom felt it too. And she's like, whoa, some hatred is coming. She brought up at some point that she felt hatred coming from his Thunderbird. And as we turn right by the library area, because he lives right there, mind you. He was like, around the corner from his house. We were around the corner from his house. His head sticks out the car, and he's staring at me, right? And that's what that hatred was. I had a feeling it had something to do with him. I didn't know it was him, and it was like, well, that's him, right? And so we turned, right? And maybe the government used technology to put it in my head. Maybe it was just the vibes. It was, he was very angry, very evil vibes. Then there was at the time at the store in front of Sun Valley Market on Monterey. He's sitting outside. Did I tell you the story about that already? Basically, I go inside. I'm with a Nortenos OG's little sister or his daughter or something. And I go in there, okay, and it must have been his daughter, right? I go in there and he's sitting out front. I just walk right by him. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm not 19. I'm, if he wants to fade, he wants to fade. I'm gonna come out with a bottle or whatever, okay, or with the blunt, right? I came for the blunt, so I might have bought a bottle of something too for good measure. I don't remember. So I come out the store. I pass him by. He's not acting aggressive at all. He's acting like he's in a zone, like he's hit by technology or something, or he's high or something, or he's disoriented. I turn back around. He's like snaps out of it. When he sees me turn around, he starts looking a little bit more aggressive. But he sees by my mannerism that I'm not aggressive. He's kind of confused, right? And so then I stick out my hand and we squash it, and I say, they're trying to turn us against each other. He said that, he said these Mexicans, the essays or whatever, have been talking shit, referring to the Northerners. And I say, don't believe them. They're trying to turn us against each other. Whoop-de-whoop, shake his hand. Okay. Then there's a time when, at the apartments, the Ohlone Chino's apartments in southern part of San Jose, where there was a 7 Tree guy living there at the time, and there was other Crips that frequented the area. And he was one of them, right? He was there with this other dude from Live Oak named John. He's in the passenger seat, right? And this guy, is driving. And I'm with Rahel, my ex-girlfriend from all those years ago. And she eventually moves to Verde. And that's when I start claiming Verde later on, trying to establish a crew there. It's a story for another day. So, and that's on the east side, okay, off McKee. So, and she's moved from there and since then and so on and so forth. Anyway, so see here. So this guy, I tell her to stay there, and I walk up to him, and we talk and whoop-de-whoop, and he's kind of, he's being friendly and so on and so forth, and he's saying I'm doing good for myself with the chick, and he says it in a way that is questionable, but he says something to that effect. Okay. And he goes off. He goes on to see the dude from 7 Trees who lived in there at the time, and that dude must have moved out by now, and and that dude actually was there. The dude who was there was actually someone the police had interrogated and hassled about the time when Deshaun Campbell, who I was told wasn't from 7 Trees, but I don't know. I don't know those guys. I didn't grow up there. I don't know those guys that well. I know a lot of them, or I know some of them. I've come across a lot of them, but I don't know those guys that well. And so, I know people that lived in that area for a while. Okay, more, I've known for a long time. Friends of mine, people I know, what have you. But again, I don't know those guys that well. So, that dude was there when Deshaun Campbell, okay, had shot the police officer, and he actually told me a little bit about the story. But he didn't know me that well, so he's not giving me any priceless jewels. And I'm not going to tell people stuff for no reason when I'm not on anyone's side. I'm not on the Crip side. I'm not on the police's side. Okay, so basically, what had happened with that is that he was in the car with Deshaun, and there was a fight at a party. There's a bunch of 7 Tree guys and some other dudes. They start squabbling. Boom, boom, boom. They start squabbling, right? Maybe bottles going off. Maybe people brandishing guns. I don't know, some kind of event like that. And they run to the car. He gets in the car with Deshaun Campbell, and there's also a place called Campbell by San Jose, a story for another day, and it has to do with Joseph Campbell, who's this famous occultist, and he's it's like a lot of people say he's the main person who influenced the New Age movement or whatever. But anyway, he gets in the car, they take off, okay, and at some point he's like, drop me off, boom, he gets dropped off for some reason, according to him, and he takes off on foot, and I think that they had verified that story or something. He gets picked up later on foot or something, right? And then that's when Deshaun Campbell later on pulls over somewhere. The police officer comes up to him, and as the story goes, I don't know who shot who, I don't know who did what, the police officer gets killed. So 7 Trees became more notorious. They're already notorious from the SIBO album, Till My Casket Drops. That's where he starts naming the different Crip sets that he's aligned to. But they became more notorious after they killed Officer Fontana. Again, I don't necessarily approve, I don't disapprove. I don't know the guy. You see what I'm saying? He might have been a pedophile, might have been a good guy. My inclination is to feel bad for him and his family. And I do feel bad right now thinking about it, but I don't know the guy. Okay? And there's a park named after him. And after that, people were being given a hard time by the police. Okay? That's another story for a day. I was on a party at the east side. They came in. They said, this is a black light or a blackout, and that they're allowed to just come run up on people when a police officer dies. And, that had occurred actually after I left that party. And also during that time in that same apartment is where I came across a dude who had grabbed my girlfriend's ass at a club. She slapped him, and he slapped her back, and his friend grabbed him, okay, And so when I seen him later in those apartments, I was telling you on the south side, on the southern part of San Jose, it's not, there's a place called South San Jose, and there's the Oak Ridge area. So the Oak Ridge area, which is in the southern part of San Jose, okay, which is, you know, you go up Pearl, eventually get to Capitol. It's like 7-8 minutes away from Seven Trees, right, where I used to live. Okay. Now, yeah, so I seen that dude later in the apartments. Ironically, no, I never thought of it that way. He was driving a white Thunderbird where Kyle was driving like a darker black, which goes back to the checkered floor of Freemasonry, which also, you know, when they saw my brother brought a car, he brought a white Ford Fusion, and the Ford Fusion that was available for me to purchase at the dealership on Capitol in San Jose was black. So I have a black car. My dad has a white car. Okay, so there's something there with that pattern. You see what I'm saying? I'm sure you all can agree that that's very unlikely that that's a coincidence. Okay, and my brother went all the way to like Marin to buy the Ford Fusion. So anyway, I seen this dude in the white. He has like his cousins or some little girls in the back of his vehicle. But I was mad, and I follow this dude out there. And later on, you know, we squash it with and he's Somalian. There's a bunch of Somalians that live there. You know, I roll up there with, you know, a Muslim homie and a blood affiliate. I'm in the back of the Cadillac. We roll up on one of these cats, and we squash the beat. But that's not before I had pulled out a butcher knife on these dudes. There was two of them, and those kids playing outside, and for whatever reason they didn't budge. I think they just are fucking retarded. It's not like they were brave. I would have killed them both. You know, I'm the top martial artist. I have a butcher knife. I'm about 20 years old at the time. Okay, and it was around that time I'd seen Kyle, what have you. And they knew that there was Crips and that go through the area, they would have gotten fucking killed. There was, you know, one skinny Somalian, one shorter Somalian. That was a little, you know, I would have stabbed them both. Like they didn't have a fucking chance. And I seen that skinnier Somalian later on the light rail. I'm going way over time now. I'm gonna have to shoot through this real quickly here. So I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to do that next part in the next part. I wanted to get it all done in one video. But I seen that dude at the light rail. He's sitting down. I'm with Rahel. Okay, we're going on the white rail. He puts his head, he bows to me. You can't make this shit up. He bowed down to me. And he might have known that I'm Christ. I don't know. For whatever reason, he looked scared as hell, sad as hell. He bowed. And I think I talked to him and I reassured him that I'm not going to hurt him, right? You know, but, you know, when also this other time I seen this other dude who's a different Somalian with that guy. And that's when I pulled out a knife that the government had sabotaged or something because it was broken. So I'm holding on the blade because it won't stay in the fixed position. There's all kinds of shady stuff that occurs. But anyway, let's wrap this thing up quickly here. No, I have to, because this is I'm gonna have to give it the time and the respect it deserves. So I'm gonna have to do it in the next part.